He was a decorated K-9 officer, but when blindness struck, the department ruled him unfit to serve. A date was set for his final day. But when his handler stood before the courtroom to plead his case, a hidden truth came out, shocking everyone and rewriting the dog's fate forever. The courtroom lights, the legal debates, none of that existed back when Rex was in his prime. He was the pride of the department, a German shepherd whose name carried weight not just among officers, but in the very neighborhoods he protected. For years, Rex worked side by side with Officer Daniels. Together, they chased down suspects, sniffed out hidden drugs, and even pulled children from danger during tense searches. The bond between man and dog was unshakable, built on countless nights patrolling dark streets where trust meant survival. Colleagues often said Rex wasn't just a K-9. He was a partner, a soldier, and at times, a guardian angel. Daniels knew it too. Every time he clipped the leash and felt Rex's steady pull, he felt safer, stronger, unstoppable. By the time Rex reached middle age, he had medals pinned to his name, commendations stacked high. To the city, he was a hero. To Daniels, he was family. And for Rex, protecting his partner and his community was more than duty. It was his life's purpose. That IT began with small things, details so subtle Officer Daniels almost missed them. During training drills, Rex hesitated at obstacles he used to leap over with ease. On night patrols, he bumped into trash cans or misjudged the curb, shaking his head in confusion as if the world had suddenly shifted. At first, Daniels brushed it off. Age, fatigue, maybe just a rough week. But when Rex failed to catch a tossed ball in broad daylight, the truth struck like a blow. Something was terribly wrong. The department veterinarian ran a series of tests, each one narrowing the grim reality. Cataracts clouded Rex's once sharp eyes, stealing the clarity that had guided him through years of service. The final verdict was devastating: progressive blindness. Daniel sat in silence as the vet explained the condition was irreversible. His partner, the dog who had saved lives and faced down danger without fear, was losing the very sense that defined his work. The news spread quickly through the unit. Whispers filled the halls. A blind K-9, they said, had no place on the force. The official notice came on a cold morning, slipped onto Officer Daniels' desk like any other piece of paperwork. But its words cut deeper than any wound. K-9 Rex, deemed unfit for duty, scheduled for termination. Daniels read it again and again, his chest tightening. Termination. To them, Rex was a liability now, an expense without purpose. To him, Rex was a partner, a hero, a friend who had stood by his side in every storm. The thought of losing him this way was unbearable. He walked to the kennel, heart heavy. Rex wagged his tail weakly at the sound of his partner's footsteps, pressing his nose against the bars. Blind or not, he still knew who stood before him. Daniels knelt, stroking the familiar fur. "They think you're done," he whispered, voice cracking. "But I won't let them take you." Right there, Daniels made a vow. If the department had given up on Rex, he would fight for him, even if it meant standing against the very system they both once served. Daniels refused to sign the order. Instead, he filed an appeal, demanding Rex's fate be decided not in silence, but in front of a judge. Word spread quickly, and soon the case of the blind K-9 stirred heated debate across the department and the community. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Reporters scribbled notes, cameras flashed, and whispers rippled through the gallery. Some scoffed at the idea. A blind police dog? Ridiculous. Others leaned forward, curious to see if loyalty could outweigh regulation. Rex sat quietly by Daniel's side, a white bandage covering his clouded eyes. Even without sight, he carried himself with quiet dignity, his ears perked. His body pressed close to the man he trusted most. The prosecution spoke first, arguing that keeping Rex alive was impractical, costly, and dangerous. To them, he was no longer an asset, just a burden. Daniels clenched his fists, waiting for his turn. When the judge finally called his name, Daniels rose, his heart pounding. This wasn't just about saving a dog. It was about proving that value couldn't be measured by eyesight alone. Daniels stepped forward, his hands trembling as he rested them on the podium. For a moment, the courtroom was silent except for the faint sound of Rex's nails tapping against the floor. The officer took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the judge. "Your Honor," he began, voice thick with emotion. This dog isn't just a piece of equipment to be discarded. He is my partner. He is a hero. He recounted the night Rex pulled a missing child from a collapsed shed, the time he sniffed out explosives in a crowded station, and the countless nights he stood guard while Daniel's own life hung in the balance. Each story painted a picture not of a tool, but of a living soul who had saved lives. As Daniel spoke, his voice broke. He may be blind now, but blindness doesn't erase courage. It doesn't erase loyalty. It doesn't erase a lifetime of service. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Even the judge leaned forward, eyes softened. Rex shifted closer to Daniel's, pressing against his leg, silent proof of every word spoken. The courtroom held its breath as Daniels paused, his hand resting gently on Rex's back. His next words came low, but carried the weight of thunder. "There's something the department hasn't told you," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. Rex may have lost his sight, but before that, he uncovered evidence that changed an entire case. Whispers erupted, but Daniels pressed on. He described how, months earlier, Rex had led him to a hidden stash of files during a narcotics investigation. Those files revealed corruption reaching deep into the department. Names, payoffs, cover-ups. Rex hadn't just been a dog following instinct. He had exposed a betrayal that shook their unit to its core. "That's why they want him gone," Daniels said, his voice rising. "Not because he's blind, but because he knows too much. Because his very existence reminds them of the truth." The gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge's gavel struck, demanding silence, but the damage was done. The courtroom no longer saw Rex as a broken canine. They saw him as the living key to justice. The revelation struck the room like lightning. Gasps rippled through the gallery, followed by a chorus of whispers too loud for the judge to silence at once. Some leaned forward in disbelief. Others shook their heads in outrage. Even the jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their eyes fixed on Rex. The prosecutor fumbled with papers, suddenly pale. "Objection," he stammered, but the weight of the truth had already sunk in. Reporters raised their cameras, capturing the moment as if history was unfolding right there in front of them. The judge leaned back, his expression unreadable, but his gaze lingered on the old dog sitting proudly at Daniel's side. Rex, blind but unbowed, sat tall as if he knew the tide had turned. From the gallery, a veteran stood and saluted. "That dog's a hero," he said, his voice breaking the silence. Applause followed, hesitant at first, then swelling into a wave that filled the chamber. For the first time, Rex wasn't seen as broken. He was seen as what he had always been, a guardian, a symbol of truth. When the gavel finally struck, the courtroom fell silent. The judge's voice carried steady and clear. "This K9 will not be put down. He will retire with honor." Relief flooded Daniels, his shoulders sagging as he knelt beside Rex. The old shepherd pressed his head against his handler's chest, tail wagging faintly. Though blind, he seemed to understand that his fight was over. He had won. Outside the courthouse, crowds had gathered. When the doors opened, applause erupted. Children waved signs calling Rex a hero, veterans saluted, and strangers knelt to stroke his fur. The dog who had once been scheduled for death was now celebrated as a living legend. Daniels led Rex home that evening, laying a soft bed by the fireplace. As the flames crackled, he whispered, "You'll spend the rest of your days with dignity, my friend." Rex sighed contentedly, curling into the warmth. He might have lost his sight, but he had gained something greater: justice, love, and a future filled with peace.